Hi there, Jamie. It's a beautiful day and I've got the window open and they're doing some lawn work outside. Pardon the extra noise. So I'm looking here. I see how you've created this cityscape. Actually, it's two cityscapes in a way. From rectangles only, verticals and horizontals. The horizontals stand for ground and sky, the verticals for the upright buildings. Reminds me a little bit of Oz on the horizon, which is what my Kansas City sometimes looks like when I'm driving toward it. Really a very nice design. I like the way the horizontal shapes on ground are larger in the near ground and they become smaller in the distance. You may be guilty of using gray. Specifically, you were to use black and white. A nice informal balance there. Okay, Nicholas work. Well, with a first art assignment, I see you've got 6 different shapes and each has been repeated. I think the second version is a little smaller, but it doesn't really feel like a single transformation. It feels like related shapes, sort of like cousins or something. You don't have to use the blend tool, and if you're in Photoshop, you don't have it. I'm going to suggest you take a look at Tiffany's solution where she took a shape and whittled it away. I don't know if she used the blend tool or just did it manually. You could use the eraser, for example, and just file, save as with each state. And I should also say something about this informal balance piece, which turned out quite nice. I think the revision is much stronger. It was almost like a puzzle where we had to hunt for the image the first time around. There's a little more about that one in the discussion. So here's Kelly's, and I do like her second version where she lets the shapes be white and she gives a little more space around everything. I noticed all those shapes sit on the same ground plane. And, this feels just a little bit like my airbed that gets deflated and packed into a box to go on a camping trip. So next we can think about Kelly's informal balance piece, and this reminds me of the work of Karen Davy. See the discussion for a link to one of her sensational paintings. Those are really big, by the way. And also Bridget Riley. I'm okay with this just as a pattern, but I'm really a lover of patterns. I think with the shapes, you've got to integrate them if you're going to use them. And here's a little picture of a zebra's eye. Okay, here's Mike's work in a couple of versions of his first art assignment. In the second one, he's removed one step, which helps it to follow the assignment properly. I like the fact that he's made a little man who transforms into a big solid shape. It's almost like Clark Kent transforming into Superman, or maybe one of those mythological gods who becomes an animal or a shower of gold or something like that. I really like the informal balance piece. I like the way that snowflake-like stock shapes have been used in a manner where they're fully integrated and they feel like they're part of the design. I like the way that positive and negative shape get kind of mixed up. It's hard to say whether the black is the object or the white. I think you need to check your black at the very point there and be sure it's nice and black. The color seems to shift a touch. Here we have Zane's work, and he was active in the draft discussions as usual. And there are actually quite a few possible solutions presented in drafts for the first art assignment, and this is a good one. When I look at that file, it's just a teeny bit fuzzy, and I'm wondering if it's in Illustrator, if you started with the raster settings at 300 pixels per inch. Go and check the start of my review for week 2 for some details on that. Now, another possibility is that maybe you crop this image from the JPEG that was submitted in drafts. Whenever you want to work with a file again, go back to the native file. And while you might have some trouble with resolution if you tried to crop the native file in Photoshop, you shouldn't experience a problem like this with Illustrator. And I know you're working in Illustrator. So 2 versions of the informal balance piece. And this is nice. This is recalling other work you've done in second art assignments in previous weeks. Notice that there are some white shapes that have been tucked into the dark shapes in the second version, and they help underscore the horizontality of what could be a landmass seen from a bird's eye view. You know, I'd say Christina is an idea person. Look at that lion transforming into a heart. What a marvelous piece. You know, it's a little hard to see it because it winds up being high on her page. I noticed that she also did a transformation with her name at the bottom, and I wanted to be sure that that was included. Now, on to the informal balance piece. Well, based on the note that Christina added to her post, she seemed a little unsure about this, and it does have some points that aren't so strong. For instance, those couple of shapes in the top right, I already mentioned that they get a little lost behind the bars of the diagonals, almost like they're in jail or something. But this drawing of grids over shapes over the bars is really kind of magical. You know, there aren't really any lines. It's almost like it's thin air, and that's a great design idea. Well, you might wonder why Paul has that white background behind his first art assignment. I'm just guessing that he's gotten this ready for print. It might be that he's made it a proportion that's the equivalent of 8.5 by 11. Now, if that's the case, I'd say just center that group of shapes in the middle, so there's an even margin at left and right. But this is a nice solution to that first art assignment. And you know, I'm looking at the couple of solutions for the second one. The first on the left is a draft, and then on the right we see the final solution, which really does have a nice informal balance. You know, there's a quality of gravity there too. The white circle hangs low and heavy, it's large, and the smaller shape seems to be fleeing with a sort of tailwind behind it. It's as though it's leaving this planet. Well, here's Tiffany's work, and for her first piece, it almost seems as though the block is being chiseled away like she's a Michelangelo. I like that a lot. I also thought of the block being eaten away, Cookie Monster style, and it made me think of this work by Janine Antoni. She made portrait busts in chocolate and soap. You can see them pictured there. And the faces were worn away, presumably by licking and using the soap for washing. The piece is called Lick and Lather. You know, I'm looking now to Tiffany's second piece, the informal balance piece, and I can see that she's got a focus there. It's that form that looks a little like a jack in the middle, sort of like a star or an asterisk. It's kind of subtle, but it's there. And there's also a rhythm of both oval shapes and diamonds that play across that, almost disguising it. Okay, here we have Debbie's work, and earlier I mentioned somebody's first artwork project looked a little like maybe an airbed deflating, but here we've got the opposite effect. It's more like a Pandora's box. We have this compact box and something large, and well, vavoom comes out of it. Maybe this is a little like a firecracker too. Now, on to the second assignment. This is actually a couple. Here we have a couple of versions from Debbie, and there was a third earlier one too. I actually favored the one on the left here. I like the way that V-shaped triangle kind of weighs everything down, almost like it's the pivot point on a seesaw, and the stuff to the left and above could be very lightweight, and here things are balancing almost as if on the point of a top.